What's going on, everybody? Today, I want to talk about something that I think is very funny that I think a lot of people probably forgot about with a lot more of Meltzer's recent controversies. Speaking of Meltzer, that's who we're talking about today. Fooled you. I made you think that we were talking about somebody else, but we're not. We're talking about Meltzer. Yeah, we are. And why are we talking about Meltzer? Well, one day out of the blue, I remembered All Out. This was the first AEW pay-per-view to take place before AEW became a show on TNT. A very good pay-per-view. AEW usually has really good pay-per-views. But the main event and the semi-main event caused some controversy. See, the semi-main event was the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, one of my favorite tag teams currently, versus the Young Bucks of Matt and Nick Jackson it's basically a ladder match for the AAA World Tag Team Championships. I thought it was cool that they brought in another championship to defend. You know, I think they do that with the Mega Championship a few times. They did that with the Mega Championship a few times too. So anyway, the Lucha Brothers defeated the Young Bucks in like a crazy ladder match. But then right after the main event, it was the main event of Chris Jericho defeating Adam Page for the AEW World Championship. And I think there was a debate online whether the ladder match should have main evented. And of course, one of the men leading the side of it should have main evented was our old friend Dave Meltzer, who apparently is just physically incapable of saying anything negative about the Young Bucks. So, this is thanks to Meltzer said what on Twitter for this information. So, a senior member on Dave's blog put up a poll to see what should have gone last on All Out, the ladder match or the inaugural AEW title match. Out of 225 votes, 207 of them, 207 said that the inaugural AEW title match should have gone on last, which I agree with, because Chris Jericho is the biggest star that AEW has, like biggest mainstream star, I think, like second only to, like John Moxley comes in that close second, but it's Jericho who's like the biggest. So of course you'd want him to main event your show to showcase like you have somebody in the main event. And only 8% of people thought that the ladder match should go on first. So naturally, Dave, being the level-headed man that he is, and the totally unbiased reviewer that he is, went on a rant. He went on a rant, like basically saying that everyone who voted on him, which were his fans, were wrong. And he just gave this freaking long-ass explanation as to why, and I'm going to read it. Hold on. And here it is. Good to see that people here know more about putting together a show than either Vince McMahon, Sam Muchnick, Jim Barnett, Vern Gagne, Paul Bosch, Jim Crockett, and Paul Heyman. There shouldn't be a period there, Dave. Just saying. Paul Heyman, who all understood when not to put the world title match at last under the wrong circumstances, because it disrespects the match to follow a wild grudge match with a straight wrestling match. It wasn't a grudge match. Like it might have been. I didn't follow the Lucha Bros and Pentagon Jr. feud, but it wasn't really a grudge match. It was more like a insane car crash match. I mean, it was fun. I liked it, but like I think a grudge match is kind of the wrong way to describe it. Like it wasn't like a Bret Hart versus Austin match at WrestleMania 13, and it wasn't like Triple H versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 27. It was like a car crash ladder match. Like that's what everyone expected from this match, and that's what it did. Like, don't call it a grudge match when it's not that big of a grudge match. This only goes back 70 years. The first NWA title match didn't go on last. The first ECW title match the NWA tournament final was followed with a tag match that tore the house down because Heyman knew the other way around wouldn't work as well. And in any way did that damage the ECW title? Long term, it makes no difference. Nobody said it was going to damage the title. Like, why would you? And like, also, like, I just thought of this. Why would you want like another promotion's titles like main eventing your pay-per-view? Like, I get that that they have like some sort of working relationship or something with AAA, because Kenny Omega's been allowed to defend the AAA Mega Championship a couple times against Sammy Guevara and Jack Evans. But why would you want to main event your show when you're going to crown the first ever champion of your product? That makes no sense to me. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. Long term makes no difference. The idea is to present everything in its best possible way. Unless you thought Jericho and Page had a great world title match, I did. Which when I watched them when I got home first, and they did. I don't know what that means. Then it hurt their match and led to Jericho is too old and Page isn't over. The wrong feedback, particularly Page isn't over because the building both were over. Chants for each were very loud. In fact, chants for Jericho were louder than maybe anyone. Cody and Omega were close, but I think not. But the exchanging wrestling moves and even cool high spots and moonsaults to the floor didn't mean as much, I think, is what you meant. Because they had to follow a gimmick match that wrestling couldn't follow. Anyway, this is all basic stuff. And, oh my God, basic stuff. Man, you are a guy who spent 40 years watching wrestling. And like, just because you've watched it for that long doesn't make you an expert. Like, it doesn't mean you know everything about it. And like, yeah, I've watched anime for almost 20 years, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert on anime and I could just say what an anime producer should do with their anime. This is so dumb. And if it wasn't, pretty much anyone in the live crowd figured that lesson out. When I was a kid, I thought that Eddie Graham was disrespecting the world title, putting Dusty on until one of those world champions explained to me how it proved I didn't know shit. So I learned. I heard from Jim Cornette that not a lot of people back then respected Meltzer at all. So I wonder who this world champion that talked to him was. I don't know how people talk to this guy, honestly, like in the business, like, whatever, man. There's more. That's wonderful. The first WWF title match didn't go on last. Bruno, Backlund, Morales, and early Hogan never went on last. Several Manias and other pay-per-views hadn't always had the title go on last. Yeah. As a rule, it should, but not if there's an out-of-control gimmick match and they're doing a wrestling match. That's basic Southern wrestling. That's how they produce the best type of shows because of learning from promoting so many shows. With Muchnick, it was about protecting the value of the title by always pushing it as the main event and putting it on next to last very often to make sure it got the right excitement. That's how the title became the most valuable. I don't agree with this at all, for two reasons, mainly. Only two. One is that Jericho is the bigger star than both the Young Bucks and Omega. So putting him on the main event makes the most sense. Number two, that ladder match was for another company's titles. Like, it was a great match. It was a great car crash match, but like, don't put another company's titles over your own. That's so stupid. But I'm not surprised Meltzer said this because he's a big Young Bucks supporter. He will say whatever it takes to make the Young Bucks seem like the biggest stars ever. I mean, I'm personally, and this is not just me personally not being the biggest fans of the Young Bucks. I just find them really annoying, honestly. They remind me kind of like, I don't want to say the Pauls because that sounds very insulting, but I do find them very annoying. But this was just like such a hilarious like rant he went on just because people didn't think that the ladder match should go on last. I mean, like, it wasn't a vitriolic rant, but it's just so egotistical. And that's one of my biggest issues with him. Dave Meltzer is just one of the most egotistical people. Like, he just thinks his word, it means everything and that he knows everything. It's ridiculous. That's why I don't like him personally. I think he's awful. Like, maybe not a terrible human being per se, but like, he's just an awful reviewer. So I did hope you learned something from this, like, or not. Like, I just wanted to make myself laugh a bit because this was so stupid. But I hope you did learn something from this. And I will see you guys next time.